I'm really looking forward to this next deer season. I think a bunch of us are gonna get on some deer here on this food plot in this area of the farm. So gonna wrap things up here for the day, but super excited with the way things are headed. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grind Season Outdoors, and welcome to the GSO headquarters, aka my new garage. This thing's pretty sweet. I've spent a couple of years building it, finishing the inside of it, getting everything set up exactly how I want it. I got basically this side of the garage, which is some extra shed antlers, and then I got some hunting stuff off to my right over here. And then back behind the camera right now is the fishing side of the garage. And you know, that's kind of where I've been shooting some of my tournament recap videos. Got my boat, a bunch of extra baits, all my fishing stuff, rods, reels, tackle, everything is over there. So I'm pretty excited about this, and you guys are going to be seeing the inside of this place quite a bit from here on out. It's been kind of a dream come true to be able to put all this together, and now that we got it finished up, we're going to go back to last season and start showing you guys some of the footage. Just as a little bit of a warning, none of us killed a giant buck on camera last year, so there won't be any of that. But with that being said, we did take a few deer on video, some does, some smaller bucks, and we have some really good stories to tell, a lot of very good footage. And I think, you know, last year was probably the most that I've ever been in the woods. I've learned a ton, I passed up a lot of good bucks. And in my opinion, this is gonna be some footage that you guys aren't gonna wanna miss. So our first video of the 2023 deer season is gonna start all the way back in the springtime of 2023. So last year was the first year in my whole life that I actually spent time with what I would call an actual food plot. We've made a couple poor man plots that were very, very poor, so we'll just say that. But 2023 was the first year that we really made a jump, and I'm going to talk about two different things that we had going on a little bit here, and you know, just explain how we got permission to do this, some of the things that we did to make it a little bit cheaper, and just some of the things that we did to you know, pull all this together and make it happen. The Grind Season Outdoors team is a lot more than just me in front of the camera. I know I might be the one that's on here the most in all these fishing videos, and you might see Spencer from time to time and all that, but what you guys aren't seeing is all the conversations and all of the work that we're doing behind the scenes with Blake, Spencer. You guys might remember Jared from back when we first started doing all this stuff. Believe it or not, we're still friends, and we're still talking over stuff, you know, hanging out or seeing each other every now and then. So there's a lot more going on than just you know, what you guys are seeing in these videos. And Blake has been crucial with just talking through some of the stuff, some of the game plans when we're hunting. You know, he's a farmer, Spencer's a farmer. Those guys are the only reason that I have any idea what I'm doing, to be honest with you. They help me out with a lot of stuff and talk through a lot. So you know, they might not be in front of the camera all the time, but they're definitely there and putting the work in and helping me out as well. Having some of these buddies, having the connections that can help me out and problem solve with me and just come up with ideas with me, that's huge. And if you guys can find something like that where you can have some connections to help you out with some of this stuff and maybe help you find stuff at a discounted rate. You know, everyone wants to hype up all these awesome food plot blends all the time, but what people don't realize is that you can get all the ingredients to those blends a lot of times for a cheaper price and get a lot more of it, as long as you're going somewhere and actually buying that from someone not selling it for a food plot purpose, I guess is what I'm saying. So early 2023, Blake decided that he wanted to create a new food plot. He had a really good deer that was on the property the year before, and he was hoping that deer was going to show back up. So that was a big driving factor for this food plot. But basically how he went about getting this food plot going, it was a permission property that he had. and he has a really good relationship with the landowner. So step one is always having a good relationship with that landowner if you don't own the land yourself. And you know, being able to hunt someone's property is one thing. Being able to go out there and you know, maybe cut trees down, build a food plot, do all that kind of stuff, that's a whole new level. So having a good relationship with that landowner, gaining the trust between each other, that's always a big factor with this stuff. But Blake's been doing a great job at maintaining that relationship with that landowner. And the landowner was actually extremely excited when he talked about this food plot thing and wanted to even help out a little bit with it. So going into the spring, we started doing some planning, what we wanted to do, where we wanted to do it. And we went out there and we burned this big area off, and basically the plan was to have some brassicas in there and also plant some beans. And you're gonna figure out throughout this video down the road that the bean thing last year was not a success for a lot of people, but we did get it all burnt off, planted it, sprayed it, did the whole 9 yards, got some equipment in there to do everything, and it worked out really good up until the point where it stopped raining. So switching over to where I was at, you know, I had another permission property, if you want to call it that, where again, I had a very good relationship with the landowner, and he also wanted to help me out, and it was a pretty good chunk of land, a good sized parcel. And what I just started to realize when I was out there a little bit was that there was a few areas in this farm where none of it was enrolled in any type of program. There was no farmland, there wasn't trees growing there. It was kind of just land that was sitting there, and you know, there were still deer that would walk through it, but I just felt like it could be utilized and we could really use that to our advantage and improve that and just make use out of some of this land where there wasn't anything going on, and it was something where we wouldn't have to go and cut down a bunch of trees or do anything crazy and take away from the property. We were just going to be adding to it. So throughout the winter time, I started planning how I was going to do this, looking at the map, coming up with ideas, talking to Spencer, talking to Blake, watching some videos on just, you know, giving me ideas on what would benefit this property. You know, the property had a lot of everything. There were cedar trees, there's apple trees, all different kinds of fruit trees. There's corn and beans all around this property every single year. And there's acorns from all the oak trees. There's just about everything that deer could want, along with a spring on the property, and then a creek, which usually flows when we're not in a drought condition. So basically what I wanted to do was add something that we didn't have already. And the one thing that I could think of was brassicas. So turnips, you know, radishes, beets, sugar beets, any of that kind of stuff. We wanted to throw that stuff on the property and get them in these areas, get the food plots established. And I knew there was going to be a lot of work going into it the first year. Basically, we're not where we want to be yet. We're still working on this, getting everything honed in. But last year was year one, basically starting at day one of what we considered a 3 to 5 year plan to get everything up to where we wanted to be. And as a lot of you guys know that have done food plot work before, I feel like it never ends. You always just keep wanting to build on what you have and make everything better. But we had basically gave ourselves a 3 to 5 year plan on what we wanted things to look like. And you know, ideally we get all that accomplished in 3 years. But if it all doesn't go perfectly, 5 years is kind of where we want to have all this stuff set in place, or else we're going to feel like we're behind. So I started off by bringing some equipment in. I work for a tree service, and I was able to take one of the posies with the Fecon mower on the front of it, and I got that out to the property to do a couple things. The one thing was I wanted to open up a lot of these trails throughout the property that had been kind of brushed in, and maybe create a couple new ones, just to have more access to the farm, to be able to drive the tractor through the farm and do some of that stuff. So these were all things that I had to communicate about, you know, let it be known that I wasn't going to go out and just mess a bunch of stuff up, but we wanted to come up with a plan and then stick to that plan. So I brought the posse out there, I worked on a lot of these trails, and then The other thing that I did was went through this big grove of cedar trees on each side of it and down the middle. It was completely brushed in by prickly ash, buckthorn, all sorts of stuff, to the point where you couldn't even walk through it. The deer weren't walking through it. And I cleared this thing out like crazy with the posse. We went through and cut some other stuff out, and then I remowed it again. So we got it cleaned out really well. I cleared out the area where we wanted to create one of the food plots. It just had some smaller fruit trees and buckthorn and stuff like that. So I went through, cleared that out with the posse, and we burned a big area of it off.
I'm super excited. I've never done even close to this much work on any property before, but it's gonna be a killer. We found like 10 sheds here this year, so the deer are already here. And this is just gonna make it even better. This little part of the property was kind of unused before, so I'm really looking forward to this next deer season. I think a bunch of us are gonna get on some deer here on this food plot in this area of the farm. So gonna wrap things up here for the day, but super excited with the way things are headed.
So again, in this area, we wanted to plant beans up on the top of this hill, and then we had another plot where we really didn't have to do much besides spray it, plant it, that kind of stuff. But we ended up getting it planted. I think it was the end of May or late June when we planted it, and like I had said before, we had almost no rain. It was so dry, and the few rains that we did get were so short-lived that it just didn't put any moisture into the ground. And after working up that soil as much as we did, I think we just dried it out way too much. And the beans did not end up working out. Whatever grew, the deer came through and just absolutely destroyed it. So coming into the end of the year, both Blake and I were kind of scrambling because we both had food plots that weren't turning out exactly like we'd hoped. So we went to a backup plan and ended up just going and broadcasting turnips into these plots. And much to our surprise, it ended up working really good. Like I had said, one of the driving factors to doing this, it was the potential for what are on these properties. And this is just, you know, even right now, looking into the future, this stuff is gonna help these properties. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when it's your first year doing stuff like this, you might not see results, but when you get those 2 or 3 year old deer that find your property and they find that food and they get used to using it, that deer could potentially be a deer that comes back the following year. And if he's 2 years old, the first year that you do this, you might have to put in 3, 4, 5 years of work before you start seeing the stuff paying off and some of these mature bucks actually staying on the property. So like I had said, with a 3 to 5 year plan on some of this stuff, that's kind of what we were hoping to see, and we're still in the middle of that plan right now. But we made this decision, both Blake and I made the decisions on the properties that we were on to do this because of either specific deer that were on the property that had our hopes high, or potential that the properties had, which both properties have a lot of potential and have the possibility to produce big deer every single year. But they also both had really good deer that were on the properties. Blake had a few really good ones going into the year when he was working on his food plot. And when I started doing the food plot last spring and start working on some of the stuff on that property, that was the first year that I'd also run cameras on it. So I didn't actually know of any deer specifically, but I knew some history about the property. I knew that there had been big ones around over the years. And we wanted to kind of improve it and maybe see deer numbers and the quality increase a little bit. And you know, throughout the summer, throughout doing all this food plot work, I kept monitoring cameras, and man, it was a good year on that property. We had a lot of bucks, a ton of bucks. We had some really good ones, and things were looking really, really good for the 2023 deer season. So these were just some of the things that we did. I know it's hard for me to sit here and talk about everything that we put into it. You know, between just the prepping of these food plots, these weren't established fields. These were places that had nothing. We had to completely establish them from nothing. We had to spray them, we had to plant them, we had to maintain them once they were planted. and it was a lot of work that went into it throughout the year. But I think it really came together. We learned a lot from it. We made a lot of mistakes, and you know, I've never done anything like this, like I had said, and neither have any of the other guys as far as deer food plots have gone. But you know, we do know a little bit just based off of you know, everything else that we've done in life. But we learned a lot, and we saw some of what worked and what didn't work, and man, it was exciting. So I hope you guys don't get discouraged if you don't have your own property or you don't have this massive food plot. What I want to tell you is, just for one, learn everything by you know, watching videos and talking to people, and make sure that you have a good idea and a good understanding on what you're doing. You don't want to be going onto someone's property if you don't know what you're doing, and you know, cutting down mature trees that are worth money, or trees that just take a long time to get to where they're at right now, and you don't want to do harm to the property. So make sure that you put in the time to research everything before going into just diving deep and working on these food plots. But as you've seen with us, you know, we don't have our own properties. These are permission properties. This is stuff where we're working on our relationship with the landowner. We're earning their trust. We're working on some of it with them and showing them that we do know what we're doing, and we're not there to mess anything up. We're just trying to make it all better. And that's the main thing. You know, if you can get out there, you can improve habitat, you can improve things for the wildlife, and you know, clean up the property, help. Some of the stuff that I did with the posse, some of the stuff that I did working on the property I was on throughout the year, was not just all for these deer. It wasn't all for the food plots that I was working on. A lot of it was just some other stuff, you know, to maybe make it easier to drive a four-wheeler around on the property, and to just improve everything all around. You know, if you guys put in the work and spend the time, you too can see yourself on a property like Blake or I have, and starting to create your own food plots to benefit the deer hunting and benefit the whole deer herd and wildlife in general. So don't get discouraged about it. I've been doing this for a very long time, my whole life. Blake has been doing it his whole life. We've grown up in the area, building these relationships. You gotta start from somewhere, but you're never gonna get to the end result if you don't start somewhere. But good luck, guys. I hope that you all have a great deer season this year, and thanks for watching this one. I hope you learned something, and if nothing else, get excited for what's to come. Check back for the next deer hunting video, which will be coming out next week, and we'll have some good ones coming down the line for you guys, and we'll see you next time here on Grind Season Outdoors.